If you're here today, it means you're either a startup founder, you're a technical founder, or you're an AI native founder, a SaaS or app founder, a B2B or B2C founder. You're building a software or an app for your users. So if you're that person, then definitely you're in the right place. Today, I'll be sharing exactly how the Startup Growth OS is used to scale startups to $20 million, $100 million in the next 12 months. And this is something that you can actually do. So, welcome, and we'll be sharing the exact process used to build several billion-dollar startup. Actually, these protocols in this presentation, the frameworks, this is proven framework that's been used by several startups. I mean, startups like Slack, Figma, other SaaS startups that you actually know. They use this exact same framework. And this framework is definitely something that I've actually improved on. I've made it better and I built it in such a way that you would understand it and also implement it in your own startup. So you're welcome. And you might be asking, who exactly is this guy and why should I listen to him? If you've been following me for a while, you will know that I shared silos of this protocol in my letters and on my social media. My name is Sam Femi, and I've worked directly with top SaaS companies to scale their growth. I call myself the growth architect, and just because I love building the startup structures that scale. So, if you're a startup founder, then you're definitely in the right place, and I'll be sharing exactly what you need to do to grow your startup. So, what really makes one an architect? Because I do love calling myself a growth architect. What makes one an architect? It's the ability to actually see the end from the beginning, to lay the foundation for a massive edifice, the infrastructure, the design, the management, the construction, the tools, and the vision. So I think you should read that again. What truly makes one an architect? What truly makes one an architect? It's the ability to see the end from the beginning, to see how definitely the startup can get to your startup can get to $20 million and then build it from start to finish, to lay the foundation for a massive edifice, to build the foundation for $1 billion startup right from now, right from the foundation. The infrastructure, the design, the management, the construction, the tools, and the vision. So, and this is what exactly I'll be bringing to you as a founder. So, why are you? So, you might fall into these categories and you are currently planning to build or launch your own startup. So probably you're planning to build your own startup. You're currently jumping from one idea to another. You've built several startups, but no PMF, no product market fit. Then definitely you need this session. And also, you're currently stuck at a revenue rate of less than $5, $5,000, $10,000, or $50,000. The problem I see with a lot of founders is that they jump from one idea to another, like several ideas, trying to make sense of the whole business or startup AI idea. And then they keep jumping from different things. They call it the shiny object syndrome, and that's a problem. But me, I call it the tourist. Like I call you a tourist. You're not a founder. You're not a startup founder. You are a tourist. You keep jumping from one location to another, from one idea to another, and then your revenue is $5,000, or even less than, and then you skip to another idea. So that's a problem that we need to solve. You're planning your go-to-market strategy, and you're also confused about how to distribute your startup. If you're in the stage of probably you want your startup to go to market and you're confused about how to go about it, then this session will definitely help you. If you're confused about how to also actually distribute your startup, then this session will also help you. So the next set of people is you have the capital, probably from an investor, from your savings, from working, but you don't know what to build, one, or you don't know what to launch and you don't understand what will actually do in the market, then this session is for you. So, where most founders are stuck in June 2025, actually, you will notice that DocuSign actually issued a legal notice, cease and desist to Michael Lowe, a product manager at Stripe. We call him a vibe coder. The problem with this is in this age of coding, building and shipping product is no longer the moat. How fast you develop an idea is no longer the competitive advantage. We are watching legacy companies like DocuSign panic. They are panicking in real time. E-signatures used to be complex technical order, but now the underlying code to build a software that signs a PDF is actually trivial. So we see this right now. It's happening in this age and in this industry, where your software as a founder can be like vibe coded in 1 day or 2 days. You can see someone that has never like probably coded in their life, just with prompting, they can actually prompt your software. You We are looking at in the nearest future where customers will be building softwares that are already existing, and then they'll be competing with the owners of the software. So this is actually already happening. So, so the problem is this: because DocuSign relied on a feature instead of deep workflow ownership, they are now resorting to legal threats and aggressive litigation to maintain their market share. This is the problem I see. I think it will definitely it's going to continue. When you have to sue your competitors to survive, your product has already lost. So we see a lot of like vibe coding tools right now. We have Bolt, we have Replit, we have Lovable, we have Claude AI, and a lot of them. As much as vibe coding is also cool, it's also not the mode. You see thousands of vibe coded in the default state even before launch. One founder with over 100 SaaS or apps. So the problem with vibe coding is that it helps you to actually build your app or your software, but it also gives you the leverage to actually build fast. And then you see a founder having over 100 apps without having the distribution for those 100 apps, without having success in with those 100 apps. So it's not about building the or having the SaaS. It's about what you can actually gain from those things you're building. Most of the 100 apps you're building, are you actually gaining revenue from it? So that's a problem you have to actually think about. So if you do not build the real mode, you will fall directly into the dead zone of low utilization and simple functionality. That's the dead zone. The dead zone is when your software has low utilization and simple functionality. So what I mean by low functionality, simple functionality and low utilization is that you have low users and then your functionality is very simple. Anyone else can actually vibe code it. If you can vibe code your solution, then someone else definitely can vibe code the same solution. So, what makes your software or your app different? This is what we're going to be finding out later. So, you'll be forced into a race to the bottom on price. Your margins will actually compress to zero. Your investors will walk away. So let us surgically dismantle the lie that you're currently operating under. You believe your ability to ship product rapidly is your primary weapon. It is not. It is a liability. It's not about shipping something fast. It's not about building fast. It's about knowing exactly what to build and knowing exactly what will succeed is the real advantage, the real competitive advantage. So your current status quo relies on the false premise that writing software is inherently valuable. You think the code is the business. This is a fatal miscalculation. In the age of vibe coding, building and shipping product is no longer the moat. How fast you can develop an idea is absolutely no longer the competitive advantage. So, generating with AI is a parlor trick. It does not create lasting enterprise value. Shipping fast is the new baseline, not a superpower. So, the next one also, as much as vibe coding is cool, it is definitely not the moat. You see thousands of vibe coded apps in the default state before they even officially launch. Exactly. A lot of apps you should actually know that this app will not work, but you because of you have access to a platform that can vibe code. Then you vibe code 50 apps before you find a successful one. Sometimes you don't even find any successful one. And you're wasting time, you're wasting money, you're wasting resources, you're wasting a lot of capital into just launching things that are already in default. So we see single founders bragging about having 100 SaaS products or apps in their portfolio. They are not building businesses, they are building a digital graveyard. This guy is tourist trying to fit in. Imagine having 100 startups, but none is working. This is just a digital graveyard. If you can build it in a weekend, your customers can build it in a weekend. So, what actually makes you different? You need to ask yourself that. If your entire business model is just a complex feature, you're a sitting duck. Time and technology will eventually reduce your brilliant algorithm into a basic utility. If your entire business model is just a complex feature, you're a sitting duck. Time and technology will eventually reduce your brilliant algorithm into basic utility. A feature without deep structural integration mathematically guarantees margin compression. I'll be breaking all those terms down for you to understand. These are the solutions to the problem that you're currently experiencing in your startup. And while you're failing getting users, getting revenue, scaling beyond the current level at which you are. So if you do not build a real architectural moat, your trajectory is set, which is failure. You will fall directly into the dead zone. This is a state defined strictly by low utilization and simple functionality. Because your product is simple to replace, you'll be forced into a brutal race to the bottom on price. Your margins will compress to absolute zero and your investors will walk away. So let's look at this diagram. You see the problem here. When you high utilization and simple functionality, you're in danger. So you have a lot of users, but your functionality is actually simple. Anyone can vibe code it. Then you are in danger. Someone can wake up tomorrow and vibe code something that is actually better than yours and then take all your users. And then you'll be competing on price. And that's where you then have a very low margin and then you experience failure. So if you have low utilization and simple functionality, that's actually a dead zone. You don't have users, you have simple functionality, it's a dead zone. In this era of it's not about vibe coding. You can have vibe code a simple functionality and you don't have any users. You're already in a dead zone, like nothing is working. You're not having revenue, no traction, nothing is working for you. So the safe zone is when you have high utilization and complex functionality. This is when your software is actually something that it will take people 5 years to actually vibe code it. It will take them 10 years to actually grow to the level at which you've built your software to. And the high utilization is when you actually have not just high number of users, but users that are actually invested in your startup. Like they have so much investment in it, so much integration that they can't leave. We'll talk more about this. So if you have high utilization and actually low utilization and actually complex functionality, you're still at risk because someone with better distribution will get better utilization. So the market simply does not reward isolated tools anymore. So let us close this whole loop that I'm trying to explain. If your only competitive advantage is that someone else does not know how to code, your business is a fragile illusion. Code is practically free. Speed of deployment is just table stakes. You have built a thin layer of convenience. You're trying to sell it as an infrastructure. If you continue to rely on the speed of vibe coding instead of engineering deep structural integration into your client workflows, you'll be priced out of existence by the end of the year. So you must stop building features and you must start monopolizing operations. And you can see this in so many startups, like what Atlassian is currently doing. They are buying Loom, they bought Jira, Trello. These people, the reason why they are building so much, having so much stars and apps together is so that they can deep workflows into a lot of users, like a lot of B2B clients that are subscribed to their platform. Imagine your whole business is integrated into Atlassian, then definitely to leave them will be very difficult. And that is how you win in this era. Ensuring that users can find everything they need on your platform and they keep investing, keep adding more users, they keep having deeper workflows in your software. That is how you win. So everything boils down to your distribution and growth capacity. So if you're thinking, how do I solve this problem? How do I get this solution. So I'm going to be starting from the basics. If you don't even have a startup, or you're planning on building one, or you're already building one, then this is what you need to do. So the first thing you need to do is you need judgment. Judgment is the ability to be right when everyone else is wrong. Judgment is the ability to look at the market that looks healthy and say this is rotten from the inside. Judgment is the ability to bet the farm on a truth that is invisible to the masses. So let's look at a case study, then I'll explain this so you get to understand it better. So when we look at the story of Slack, do you know actually know how Slack started? It wasn't supposed to be a chat app. Stewart actually was trying to build a video game called Glitch. He raised the millions, he hired the best artists, he built a beautiful world, and it failed. The game wasn't fun. The users didn't stick. It was a disaster. But inside the company, they had a problem. Now, this is where judgment comes in. Inside the company, they had a problem. They had developers in Vancouver, artists in San Francisco, and managers in New York. Email was very slow, like too slow. The internet relay chat was also too ugly and didn't save history. They were bleeding efficiency, they couldn't coordinate. So they built a messy little internal tool to chat. It had archives, it had search, it was ugly, but it stopped the bleeding problem. Eventually, Stewart Butterfield actually realized that the game was dead. He looked at the internal tool and he used his judgment. And this is where judgment comes in. He realized every company on has this bleeding neck. Email is killing productivity. Imagine there's no Teams, Microsoft Teams. Imagine there's no Slack. Imagine there's no probably WhatsApp. Like WhatsApp is actually social, but it's not a work tool. But imagine there's no these tools are not available. Imagine you have to come like chat with people, your workers, your staff. You have to interact via email for every transaction or every conversation. Then that was what, like, if you could imagine that, that was the experience back then when Slack was not available, Teams was not available, and all the softwares were not available. So he killed the game. He pivoted to tool, and then he launched Slack. He didn't sell chats, he sold the end of email. He found the problem by living through it. He validated it by using it. And this is where judgment comes in. Judgment is not about going to school, having a certificate, or building 100 startups, even though that contributes to it. Judgment comes from you understanding exactly what the problem is for your industry, for the current industry that you're in, like seeing a problem that no one else is seeing, seeing a solution to a like a bleeding neck problem for your industry, for the people you're working for your users, for your client base, like a bottleneck. When I mean a bottleneck now, I mean a bleeding neck, something that people will definitely take out their card to pay for. Then that is judgment. And for you to get to this level of judgment, you actually need to move from this level. Let me break it down for you. If you look at this image, I started at data. So you need data, you need information, you need knowledge, you need wisdom, and then you need judgment. So a lot of people, they skip these stages. They only work with data. Let me search Google for this information and then I'll build my startup. That's wrong. You have the information and then you want to build a startup. That's wrong. You have the knowledge and you want to build a startup. That's wrong. You have the wisdom. You need judgment. Judgment is what will give you the ability to look at the market and say, this is definitely what will happen in the next 5 years. And I need to position myself, my startup, to actually be the the solution to that problem in the next 5 years. That's judgment. So the second thing you need to do to actually stay bulletproof in this age, in this vibe coding age, and in this age of where startups are dying like every day, you need deep roots. Talked about this, where you get to the safe zone. The safe zone is when you high utilization and complex functionality. So the speed of deployment is no longer a competitive advantage. You cannot code the giant. You must out integrate them. You must move your product out of in danger quadrant where you have high utilization but simple functionality into the safe zone. This is a safe zone where you have high utilization, complex functionality. Your customers, your users, your clients, they must be invested in your startup to the extent that they can't leave or they lose their livelihood. You must get your users so invested in your startup that if we leave these people today, what are we going to lose? They have to like imagine the loss. It's you can't beat this by pricing your software cheaper. You can't beat this by building a very nice UI or UX, even though that contributes to it. But you need deep workflows for your users. So one thing you can actually do, I think I picked this image from Elena, and you have to move your users from free, the least complex, lowest revenue, to team, and then from team to enterprise. So you must build your software in such a way that users move from free to team and then to enterprise. And this we can see the example of this with Canva. The reason why Canva is so successful is that they cater to both B2C and B2B. So they cater for the free users, then that will move to premium, and then for the team. And then they cater for enterprise usage also. So this is when you get to the enterprise usage, this is where you have high complexity and the highest revenue. And what Canva does is PLG, that's product led growth, which we're going to still talk about. So, how do you avoid the individual user trap where you are just focused on one single user and then that single user can leave any day? And that's the problem. Imagine you have 100 or 1 million users and they are all single users. Imagine 10% of them leaving today. That's a problem. So, what you need to do is you need to measure teams, not people. Your biggest revenue comes from companies and not single users. So, stop tracking individual success alone and start tracking how the whole team is performing. And also, you need to redefine your active user. If a user is using your product alone, they don't count. Real activation only happens when they collaborate with someone else. You aren't truly active in Miro until you invite a colleague to the whiteboard. That's what like Miro or is it Miro? Well, that's what they track. They track the moment you invite a colleague, this person is active, this person has a team, this person has like that definitely this person can expand. So you need to start tracking the activation of people that have like two users, three users, or they invited people to the platform. You also need to watch the team growth. Don't just look at your total sign up, look at how fast a specific company or their account is adding new members. That is your best signal that they are ready to pay. And this thing is something that you need to track. Like when Slack started, Slack actually tracked the number of messages sent. If some like a single user joins Slack, it's very difficult to send messages between yourself. Imagine two people join, three people join, then the messages can increase. So Slack, instead of tracking users alone, they track active messages. So if a new account gets to 20 messages or more messages, then those people are active. Then these people they have the potential of becoming a bigger user. So make the multiplayer feature better. So you need to design your product so that it becomes more valuable for everyone every time a new member joins. So if a new member is joining, you need to make it in such a way that as long as this member is joining, then this member will get the best out of this. And this is where you need to start thinking of different departments in a company, the procurement, the finance, the admin. If they join your platform, how would it become better for this individual department? And collectively, how will it become better for them? So now the next is don't just build for creators. Most SaaS tools focus only the person doing the work. You need to build features for managers who want to view, who want to approve the work that someone else is doing. If you hook the boss, you secure the contract. So imagine the boss knows that this tool is very important, then definitely they will subscribe for the tool. The biggest one and the biggest of all, I've talked about the deep root, having deep root. I've talked about having judgment. The biggest of all, which I think everything falls under, is distribution. And distribution is the craziest and the biggest moat right now for any startup. That's why you see startups going to different lengths to actually get distribution for themselves, and they do this through their go-to market. They do this through different things. So if you want exponential growth, then you need to actually build a solid distribution system, a solid growth engine, and a solid growth infrastructure. So I see a lot of founders obsessing over product growth while their distribution engine actually starts. Your competitor can copy your user interface, they can reverse engineer your prompt, they can clone your entire feature in a week, but they cannot clone your distribution system. Distribution is actually where the war is actually truly fought. The survival of your startup relies entirely on answering five relentless questions. So these are the five questions you need to answer. What to build? How do you acquire? How do you activate the users you acquire? And how do you monetize? And how do you retain? So those five questions must be answered by you. If you can answer these five questions, then you're definitely going to succeed with your startup. A lot of founders, they struggle with answering this question. First, they start by failing at what to build. They build anything. They pick an idea, they pick an information online, and then they start building. They lack the judgment to know exactly what to build, exactly what will actually succeed in the industry or in the market that they are entering. So the next question says, how do you acquire? How do you activate? These are questions that you need to answer, and you can't answer it alone. That's the problem. You need an experienced person that understands the whole process of actually answering all those five questions. So, if you build a brilliant AI wrap but have no engineered method of acquiring customers cheaply, you bleed out of cash until you die. So, the former process, like where founders actually say, I want to solve this five question, the funnel they follow through is okay. Am I found the right? Is there founder fit? Then they build an MVP. They build a PMF. They try to get the PMF. That's the product market fit. They go to market and then they scale up and then they look for an exit. That's the old route. The new route, which I think we are going into the next phase of this industry, the tech industry, is when a single person can build $1 billion company. And what you need is you can follow through this process, through this old route, where you start thinking, am I a founder fit? Then you build MVP, then you start looking for PMF, then you start looking for your go to market strategy and everything, then you scale up, then you exit. You can't follow that route anymore. What I say you need is what? Judgment. First, you need judgment. And the truth is, if you have judgment, then you can quickly validate your idea and you can gain PM immediately, validating the demand you've already seen by judgment. Judgment actually gives you PMF. Like you already know that the PMF is there. It's not like you're looking for the PMF. The PMF is already waiting for you because you have the judgment to see it. So imagine you're not even building MVP first. You already have PMF. Then you build the MVP for the PMF that is already in existence. So after having the judgment, the PMF, and then you now build the MVP to fit into the PMF. Now the market is already there. You just build a product to match the market. That's how you have self-serve users where users will self-serve themselves, and then you have simple onboarding that works. And then these users, because you know the judgment, because you build the MVP to solve the judgment, they have quick time to value. You engineer the TTL, that is the time to value, to be very short, and then they are excited. The users are excited to use your product. And then since you add this, you add something to sweeten the deal by adding a viral growth loop. Now imagine adding a viral growth loop to a solution that is already sweet and it already has a PMF. Then the users coming in, they generate more users for you. And that's how you scale to $1 billion company. So with this, you get a near zero cost per user through the virality of your product, and you also ensure that you're serving a large market so that you also get the large number or chunk of users flowing to your product. So all this comes from having judgment and then getting PMF from that judgment, building the MVP to actually solve that problem, and then getting the users to self-serve. This is where you build your product-led growth. Not that you're relying on marketing, you're not relying on just sales or marketing. You're building a product that actually sells itself. It's like there's a fast water moving in this lane. Then you just place your product on that fast water, and then the product will move by itself. You don't need to actually start pushing the product using marketing or sales. The product actually flows in that water by itself because the current on that water is actually very strong. So, what is the architect distribution matrix? You need to pick one of your weapon. We have the inbound, we have the outbound, we have the viral. So the inbound is the marketing, the one that is marketing led. We're talking about content, we're talking about SEO, we're talking about AEO, artificial intelligence, we're talking about product signal. We're talking when we talk about outbound, we're talking about sales, we're talking about external signal, DMing, appointment set, all those they are fast born, high precision. The next is the viral product led loops. This is actually exactly what will bring virality to your product. And we're talking about the product led, where the product spread itself. We're talking about Lovable, example of Lovable, Dropbox, Slack, Zoom. So word of mouth, integration and partnership, product design as a distribution strategy. We see the likes of Notion and iPhone. So we have different types of loops. We have the content loop, we have the paid acquisition loop, we have the viral loops, and we have the sales loop. I think Kyle gave this diagram and this content, and I love it. So I had to actually share it with you guys. Kyle Pola, if I pronounce the name right, the founder of Growth on Inch. So what am I trying to drive at here? You must build your distribution for both internal and external. So when we talk about both internal and external, we're talking about owned attention and rented attention. Internal distribution versus external distribution. So what does internal distribution look like? This is when you acquire a user and then that user activates a team and then that team activates the whole company. Let me break it down so you understand. You acquire a user, the user activates a team, and then you scale up to selling to a company. That is what internal, and this is done by product led. So when we talk about product led, this is a diagram by Elena. That's the head of growth at Lovable. So she said product-led sales. When we talk about traditional, let's look at traditional first. You have to think about MQL, the marketing qualified lead, the sales qualified lead, product usage, and then you need people to actually close the sale. But when we come to product-led, we're talking about users will start off by using the product, not at the end. They use the product, then you get your product signal. The product signal will tell you this user is moving to team. We have it's no they are no longer a single user. They have like two team members, three team members. They can actually move to a company. We can get the whole company to use the platform. We can tell the company, let's say example like Canva, admin department they need Canva, design department need Canva, social media need Canva, everyone needs Canva to prepare presentation, to do any sort of design to increase the efficiency and the productivity of the company. That's how you get to the enterprise level where you get all the whole company to actually get to use your product. So this is actually very deep. Just trying to actually break it down for you to understand it better. This is when you start thinking of we need sales ICPs, product ICPs. You start differentiating it. So when we talk about product ICP, this is where you start targeting just single users that can convert to team and then convert to enterprise. And then your sales ICP is when you have the product signal that these people can convert to enterprise. So you allow the product to convert the single users to team and then to enterprise, but you now focus your sales on just the enterprise value system, like the enterprise client, and get your salespeople to actually just close the enterprise client and then answer questions and also get them to close because the enterprise client we're talking about a very big deal here. So they need to actually interact with someone. This is where you start defining and separating your ICPs. You can't use the same ideal client profile for each of this. So this actually is complex and yet simple. So what should your external distribution look like? This is when you start by what? Finding signals, finding trend, finding a fast moving water, and then you build the offers around this in your niche or industry. This is where then after doing that, you move to building a dynamic viral sales letter that actually convert these people. Then you start generating attention, you start generating the interest for the offer. This is when you also start turning those attention to audience, to a platform, a community, and then you start using that to build systems and also generating data from your community. So then you keep reiterating with the feedback you're getting, you keep reiterating your VSL, you keep reiterating your attention, how you get the attention and how you get the best users that are actually qualified for your product. The next is you build a sales asset and then you develop the sales process engineering. If I start breaking this external down, we're going to spend 5 hours on this call. So the problem with borrowed playbooks, when founders feel the pressure of commoditization, sorry about that. When founders feel the pressures of commoditization, they panic. They look at a successful company and then they try to blindly copy their marketing strategy. They see a competitor launching a massive SEO blog, so they hire five freelance writers. That is a fatal error. You cannot copy a growth strategy from one place, paste it on top of a total different business. Every business requires a unique architecture. Growth articles on the internet often claim that because a specific tactic works for a company, everyone should do it. But if you're experienced, you know, like real business, you know the truth. 100% of the time, that an experiment is based purely on an idea that worked at a previous company, it fails miserably. So if you're trying to borrow playbooks, let's say, let me figure this out myself. Let me just get this. How will I put it for you now? Let me borrow the playbook of Canva. Let me borrow the playbook of these people. Then you just keep running in cycle. You're trying to borrow playbooks that will not work for your own system. So you must discover your own compounding loop. You will not know what will work for your product unless you start testing, failing, learning, and testing again. So you must watch your distribution loop to your business. You must match your distribution loop to your business model constraints. To solve distribution, you must build one of the four core growth loops, which is either content, paid acquisition, viral, or sales. Each operates with this different mathematical boundaries. So you cannot actually copy another company's playbook because you won't know what will actually work until you actually start testing, failing, learning, and testing again. So let me just bring this to a close here. I think we are close to an hour on this video. What you need to actually think about is this. From everything I've discussed in terms of having judgment, in terms of having the right deep root, the right workflows for your customers, and then distribution, how do we bring this together? If you're really actually interested in actually growing your startup and you want to implement the things that I've actually shared on this video or on this session, then you need the Startup Growth OS. So this is where you actually get to build your startup and then build something that scales and make money. You need to actually roll to the Startup Growth OS. So the Startup Growth OS will actually implement all these things that you see. We're talking about the internal distribution, we're talking about the external distribution, we're talking about judgment, we're talking about integration, where you stay in the safe zone. And when I mean the safe zone, I'm talking about high utilization and complex functionality. So if you're interested in staying in the safe zone, in having judgment and also succeeding with your startup, having exponential growth, then you need the Startup Growth OS. If we are working together on the Startup Growth OS, we are going to be breaking down each of this in details, not like I'll be teaching you. I'll be bringing this exact same frameworks into your startup, and then helping you to grow into a $1 billion startup. And then we'll start by getting you a very, very high revenue. We're talking about getting you millions in revenue. And this can only work when we build the startup growth OS for your startup, for your SaaS, for your app, or whatever you're building currently. This is where we start building the internal and the external distribution. We start finding the fast moving water. We start building the offers. We start building the VSL, the dynamic that will keep reiterating. We start generating the attention. And all this will build, we test, we reiterate, we build till you get to that stage where the product itself is selling, making money without anyone's input, with little input. And the only time you will need someone to actually come in to actually scale your business is when you need salespeople to close the enterprise client. I'm talking about $1 billion deals, hundred of millions deals, $10 million deals with enterprise clients. So here's what you get once you start working with me on the Startup Growth OS. Number one, you get the startup growth strategy. So we'll audit everything. You will walk away with a clear custom roadmap to scale or judgment on what to build if you haven't built a product yet. So the next thing you need is the startup growth framework. So you're going to get personalized frameworks for what to build. So we're talking about what to build, how do you acquire users, how do you activate users, how do you monetize the users, and how do you retain the users. So you're going to be getting this framework. We're going to also be engineering the whole process. I will review and rebuild your marketing led strategy, your product led strategy, your sales led strategies, and then we'll review and rebuild it. We will build your entire structure answering these questions of how do you acquire, how do you activate, and how do you monetize, and how do you retain. And then you will have the exclusive access to the Startup Growth Club. I'm talking about direct access to me and an exclusive growing community of founders. I'm talking about founders making it in the industry. So if you're looking for founders that are interested in just growth, then this community is solely focused on growth. So once you join the community, all we talk about in that community is just how to grow your startup. We're talking about how to scale your startup. So this is where you get the latest framework, the latest insights, the latest strategies. You get real answers to tough questions from real people with real experience. So you'll be getting templates, funnels, research, script, everything you need to actually scale your business is included in the Startup Growth Club. And this Startup Growth Club is actually like a different expense on its own, but we're making it free for you and you get a lifetime access to this club if you're joining. So, if this sounds like the best thing you've ever heard, then you can book a call, you apply, then we jump on the call, and then I review your startup and I tell you if you're a fit and if we can definitely work together. If you're not at a state which we can work, then definitely I will let you know. But if you're interested in growing your startup, then definitely reach out to me and then we'll actually get started. So you can click the link below and also apply to actually get on the Startup Growth OS. So everything I've talked about there in this session, we're going to be working on it and getting your startup to the foundation of $1 billion startup. We're going to get your startup to a level where you know that from this level, then definitely we're scaling to the highest. So this is where you'll be getting the leverage and the velocity. When we talk about velocity, now we're talking about speed and direction. You'll be getting the speed and the direction to build one person billion dollar company. So if you're interested, I think I need to actually get water right now. I've been talking for almost an hour and I'm actually feeling thirsty. You can actually notice from my voice. But I think if you have any questions, if you actually need more clarity and you think this will actually be the best thing for you right now, like at any stage you are currently in on your startup, then you should apply. Click the link, apply, go to the link and apply, and then we'll get started. And then I look forward to working with you and also getting to having you in the club. This is an exclusive club. You get to apply to actually get in. So if you apply and you're not a good fit, then you're not getting in. So if you're interested, click the link and then we'll get started. Ciao.